Here also on videotape from the Soviet Union. Vladimir Novikov on parallel bars.
He opened on the end with a peach. This is a very quick exercise. Front 1 1/4. I like the style here because he's moving very quickly from one element to the next. He doesn't quite have the elegant rhythm that you see from an Artyomov, but he just rips off one trick after the next and nails the landing on that pike double back.
You know, the thing that's impressive to me, Kathy and Bart, and of course I haven't been around this sport nearly as much as you, but 9-7 was the lowest score by the Soviet team on parallel bars. That's pretty darn good.
As you mentioned, Kathy, that's where the Soviets will beat you. Their top 3 gymnasts are, no question, competing for the top 3 spots in any world competition, but so are their bottom 3 guys, and that team depth is what allows them to stand above many of the teams here.
Vladimir Novikov, a 9-8 for the Soviet Union, so they just continue their mastery and they continue to just dominate these world championships in team competition. Preparations going on now for the 6th and final rotation. The Japanese will be on the pommel horse, and as we have done throughout this broadcast, let us tell you a little bit about what the United States did in competition held earlier today on pommel horse.
Michael Racanelli was doing very well, had a minor form break there, but he really worked aggressively through his routine. These are flares, and you'll notice he's traveling across the horse without using the pommels, which of course will gain him extra difficulty points. And he went up to handstand right there, back down into the middle for a score of a 9.5. Patrick Kirksey was doing very well, and notice right here as he starts to do his scissor, his right hand slips a little bit, and he breaks the rhythm of the exercise, and of course that's a major break. And that cost him at least 3 to 5/10 of a point, only a 9.2 for Patrick Kirksey on that event. And then Kevin Davis finally put together a really strong routine. Kevin has always been good on the pommel horse. But you can see here he travels across the horse, and here is his best combination. From these flares, he's going to travel across the horse while he hops in the opposite direction in what they call a spindle. Continued through the exercise with excellent single leg work. And his dismount here, he works his way to the end through a handstand and pirouettes off. That routine scored a 9.6, the best effort for the U.S. on the pommel horse.
Did you notice little golden arches, commercialism coming to your sport, the gymnastics?
Yeah, and the Soviets were the ones to start it. They're wearing a logo that says Sofinal, which is the insurance company that covers and insures the Soviet gymnastics
No
team.
truth, though, they wanted to change the name to the McPommel, right? The Soviet Union continues to lead the team competition here. East Germany doing very well in second place ahead of China. Got a lot more to come. We'll be back. Munich, West Germany plays host to a world-famous tradition of Bavaria, Oktoberfest. The festival atmosphere of this fall celebration has one small catch. If you come to Munich in October, too late. Oktoberfest is observed in September. Ma Zheng of China now on the pommel horse.
Once again, the flared circles are very popular, and many of the top gymnasts are using this combination that we saw Kevin Davis use. Spindling flares across the horse without touching the pommels. He works his way back. Good form. His routine seems a little choppy to me, though. He doesn't have the rhythm that you see from many of the top Soviets and some of the top Hungarians who have set the standard for pommel horse worldwide for many years, beginning with Zoltan Magyar.
Earlier we saw Mogilny of the Soviet Union get a 10 in this same event, and while Ma Zheng is very happy, I think perhaps you could see the difference in the two.
He has good elevation. Form is good. This is certainly the best part of his exercise here. The flared position as he's turning his upper body in the opposite direction that his lower body is traveling. And look at the tremendous elevation above the horse. Here's a good opportunity to see what happens as he works his way back across the horse. Twisting his upper body in the opposite direction of his lower body.
9-6-5, the score for Ma Zheng. Chinese team, of course, chasing the East Germans And it's a bit of a ways back, and the Chinese can really not afford a mistake. Looking for a close-up view. Better keep her hand there. Her chin may drop.
Really has been a great competition. We've seen so much great gymnastics. Keep in mind there are 6 teams all competing all at once, so you're flying around the gym, seeing one wild routine after the next. It's very, very difficult to follow.
It is. It's difficult to keep up with, and yet I think everybody at home, along with us here, is just seeing some spectacular gymnastics.
Well, you know, the gymnasts consider the World Championships and the Olympics as the major events, and so all the gymnasts are in the best possible shape, and they're showing their finest routines here.
Valentin Mogilny on high bar now, the Soviet Union. He had a 10 earlier on pommel horse.
One-arm giant swing to a ginger. Notice his rhythm. The exercise is smooth. He squeezes complete extension out of every element. There's a reverse heck.
He really stylizes every movement that he does.
He did that full pirouette right into the inverted giant swing, showing tremendous flexibility in his upper body and his shoulders. He's dismount, a laid out, full out. Oh, he sits down. Now this has been a problem for Mogilny. As we mentioned earlier, he is such an outrageous gymnast, but he has had problems in major meets. And it certainly showed up there on a dismount. Everything was going beautifully, lay out, full out, and he pulls it a little bit too far through. Obviously a break in concentration, and that's one of the reasons that he hasn't been selected to compete on the Olympic team for the Soviet Union last year.
Well, what a shame that was. Meanwhile, Li Ge on pommel horse for China.
Beautiful flares traveling back across the horse. The judges need to see at least one element on one pommel. They love to see the handstands because those are very impressive to the judges. In fact, one of the first guys in the world to do a handstand was one of the Soviets, Korolev, in the '81 World Championships. Used it in his optional exercise. And many of the coaches and judges were feeling that perhaps the handstand was not the direction to go on the pommel horse, but now that the gymnasts do it without breaking any rhythm in the exercise, it's a natural element on the pommel horse. And you can see here as he torques up to a handstand, there's no break in rhythm. Very cleanly done and very impressive dismount.
Well, the Soviet Union continues to dominate here in Stuttgart. A lot more to come. We'll be back right after this. Vitaly Martinich of the Soviet Union. Mogilny a 9.5. And remember, Mogilny is in the thick of a battle just to be one of the top 3. It appears he will be because he's had a very good competition.
He was in 3rd position, though, only 0.3 of a point ahead of Martinich. So he's kind of opened the door slightly, but has opened the door for Martinich to maybe move into that coveted 3rd spot for the Soviets.
Martinich builds his routine around a couple of really outrageous release moves. Here comes the first. Straddled, Gaylord to a perfect regrasp. Now here comes the second. A reverse hecht front, and once again catches it, but you can see he has a little bit of a break in the rhythm as he catches that skill in a routine that's designed around a couple of very big release moves. Not necessarily the complete routine that you see from a Mogilny, but just stocked with difficulty in a full twisting double layout.
And again, this perhaps emphasizes the point you were making about what the Americans need to do, maybe more graphically than anything else.
Well, as you can see here, he just takes advantage of this opportunity to show the world that he can do everything. He does the Gaylord in the straddle position. This is the reverse hecht to a front. Now, keep in mind that he's going to take a little bit of a break in the rhythm here. He has to continue through the exercise, but he's not going to be comfortable competing with just a mediocre level of difficulty. He's challenging the top level of difficulty being used by any gymnast, and that's certainly for the U.S. team and for what the U.S. gymnasts are competing now. They looked very good here and well conditioned and in good shape and reasonably consistent, but there are very few teams, including the Americans, that can compete with the kind of level of difficulty that the Soviets are showing here.
Is he just naturally going to be scored higher just because of the difficulty of his routine?
Well, certainly difficulty is the most obvious way of getting the judge's attention, by throwing a big trick. And if you can do it with clean form, the scores will be there, because the Soviets have everything else. They have the technique, they have the form. So you pack a couple of big tricks in there and the scores are going to be there.
Someone we've seen on a couple of occasions so far tonight, Andreas Becker of East Germany in floor exercise.
Becker opened with a nice full twisting double and a handspring front layout. Those are the flares. We saw him on the pommel horse. A lot of the gymnasts are using now on the floor. They do the flares up to a handstand, a pirouetting handstand. Becker was first on the high bar in the European Championships this year in Sweden. It's a clean tumbling run. It's a whip back through to a double twist. Now, this isn't the level of difficulty that you're seeing from the Khodorkovskys or the Novikovs or even the Artyomovs. But his exercise has a good, clean look to it. Tuck double back, one step on the landing. It'll be interesting to see what that routine scores, because although it was very clean, it was very stock, and at this level of competition, the difficulty level was very mediocre.
9.65 for Marinic on the high bar. A moment ago, we were watching him, and now we watch Vladimir Artyomov on high bar.
One of his gold medals in the Olympics in Seoul, of course, was here on the high bar. The one-arm giant swing to a Tkachev, to a Ginger, every time. The same position. Very difficult combination, and it looks so easy because the technique is so good. Once again, just notice how he takes his time in the giants. Good rhythm, good clean form, and very pretty position in the air on that layout double. That's the exact same routine that he used a year ago in the Seoul Olympics.
Vladimir Artyomov of the Soviet Union, another look.
Here's the release combination. One arm, reverse hecht over the top to a Ginger, which is a backflip with a half twist. He catches in perfect position.
You make that one-arm giant swing just look so easy.
And one of the first one-arm giants that was done was back in 1979, 10 years ago, by Tkachev, who invented, of course, the Tkachev on the high bar. There was an American, Mark Davis, who did it about 20 years ago, but it didn't look quite like that.
All right, when we come back, we'll let you know how Vladimir Artyomov did on high bar. A lot more to come from Stuttgart. Toshiharu Sato of Japan on the rings. Artyomov on high bar, 9.85 before we went away to break. Perfectly consistent event for him. 9.85 on high bar, 9.9 on parallel bars, 9.85 on vault, 9.9 on pommel horse. Excellent event.
Sato opened his ring routine with a kip to an L cross. It's a D move. The judges are looking for moves that are of A, B, C, and D categories, the D being the most difficulty. And that combination there was tough to hold that handstand after doing those two Yamawakis through to a back uprise to handstand without letting the ring swing. It's a very difficult combination. Nice dismount, a full twisting double layout, and just a little short.
Toshiharu Sato of Japan to bring you up to date. Andreas Becker, we saw him in floor exercise from East Germany just a moment ago. 9.7 was his score. 9.85, as we already mentioned, for Vladimir Artyomov on high bar from the Soviet Union. Again, the dismount of Sato.
This is the double layout. There's a giant over the top to pick up some speed. There's a double layout, and then he twists the second flip. It's called a double layout full out.
Japanese very quietly having a good competition here, top 5.
Their scores on the ring, they had a 9.75, a couple of 9.5s, a 9.6, a 9.7. They're not going to challenge the Soviets with scores like that, but they are very, very consistent scores.
And creeping up on China, 9-8 the score for Toshihiro Sato.